Welcome back to the Prosperous Life Podcast, everyone. Today, me and my guest's goal is to help you live a prosperous life by sharing your story and begin to write the story which you choose. We're told who to be and what to do in this world more often than we like, but it's a part of the process, and as you choose your story, you get to be free and be liberated by the way that you get to live. Now, as we go through this podcast, I encourage you to ask yourself a couple questions. 1, what is the story you want to live? And 2, how can you share your story with this world? Now, welcome back to the podcast today. I am Braiden Belnap, Transformation Life Coach, and today my guest is Miss Riverton, and she's going to add a lot of value to you. She's going to share a lot about her hardships, how she's created her life, and how she's been able to take her hardships and create them into something beautiful. Welcome to the show, Lily Snow.
Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor.
Of course. So, from the outside in, you're living an extraordinary life, but of course we have our own struggles. Mm-hmm. So how do you optimize your good things in life and your hard things and make your story?
Mm-hmm. I think it's different for everybody, because I think that we all, when we go through good things and hard things, it's kind of all about perception. So, for example, if you believe in God, right, like you can go through something hard and think like, oh, I'm going through this hard thing because I did something wrong and God is punishing me. Or you can go through something hard and see it as a way for you to draw closer to God by relying on Him, right? But I feel like for me, the best thing I've done with my life is decide that the hard things I go through turn into the good things. And so it's kind of all about working through the hard things and just accepting, like, I don't really love where I'm at now, but how can I use where I'm at now to work to be where I want to get in the future? Yeah.
When you said it, the thought that came to mind was when we look back on our past, life makes sense. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I went through that hard thing and now I'm here and this is amazing.
Yeah.
But when we're going through a hard thing now, it's like, why?
Yeah.
It's like, maybe this is just leading you to your next greatest destination.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not something you can ever... there's no way for you to imagine where you'll be 10 years from now accurately, right? But like 10 years from now, you'll look back and be like, oh yeah, I can clearly see how my life then was set up for me to have my life now.
Of course. Mm-hmm. So to speak to that, you've started to open up and share your story about eating disorder and your struggles, which hats off to you.
Thanks.
It's not easy being vulnerable and saying, hey, this is my story. Let me show the world what's going on inside of me. Has that been liberating, or how has that served you?
It's been really liberating. I didn't really know necessarily that I had an eating disorder, probably until I had been going through it for a couple of years. I remember in middle school sitting in class, and I was in a pair of jeans and a kind of a tighter shirt tucked into my jeans. And I was sitting in class and I could see my tighter shirt kind of folding over my jeans, as I was sitting down, which, you're sitting down and so things are whatever. But I was like, oh, I'm never wearing this shirt ever again. And then I remember probably a couple years later laying on my couch and like having similar thoughts and thinking that again, and just like small things. And then one day I was in a health class in middle school and my teacher started talking about eating disorders. She talked about, anorexia that we all hear about, and she talked about binge eating that we hear about, and then she talked about body dysmorphia. And she kind of told us about how body dysmorphia is really a mental game, and it can lead you to either of those things, anorexia or binge eating or, whatever. And she was talking about, all the symptoms that come with it. And I remember texting my mom and I was like, hey, have you ever heard of this thing, body dysmorphia? And she was like, yeah. And I said, I think I have that. And we didn't really talk about it much after that, because I wasn't like, everything was in my head. There was no like physical manifestation of what I was going through. And then I graduated high school and I moved out and was living by myself. And that was when things kind of started to spiral because I was in charge of my own life. And I very, very quickly realized that if I didn't go out and buy my own groceries, then there wasn't food in the house to eat. Or if I wanted to go to the gym all day long, nobody was going to know. Nobody was going to judge me. Just like small things like that. And things really started to spiral. Eventually, looking back, I didn't realize it at the time, things got really bad. I sought some help. Things got better over a long time. And now I'm at a point where I can understand that I didn't understand what I was going through when I was going through it, right? But I can help somebody through my story. By sharing what I'm experiencing, I can help somebody else maybe recognize those things in their life, because it wasn't until my teacher said something about it that I was like, oh, that kind of sounds like me. And I think that being the kind of person who, it's like weird to say, but is like an influential person in society, right? I have that kind of platform for people to look up to me, and I don't want people to think that I'm just like picture perfect. I would rather be seen as somebody who is relatable. And so I feel like for me, sharing my story, that's the important thing, is helping other people understand that they're not alone. And obviously you're not going to change your life immediately just from hearing one other person's experience. But if I can help somebody a tiny, tiny bit through my story, through what I've gone through, then to me it will have been worth it.
Of course. I'm sure you get it all the time. You know, you go to a pageant or an event. People are like, oh, you're so beautiful. You're getting so complimented. And I feel like in today's day and age, we're always judging our story compared to somebody else's, or our looks compared to somebody else's. So to that girl or that guy not feeling beautiful, not feeling handsome, what are the things that you do that when you start to feel like, like I don't feel like I'm very beautiful? Like, what do you do to overcome that so you can start to feel beautiful again?
Mm-hmm. This is going to sound really silly. But sometimes there are days that I'm like, like you were saying, like, this is not it. Like, there's nothing I can wear, no way that I can do my hair, like, that works for me. And honestly, it sounds so dumb. I take a shower, and I have very naturally very curly hair, but normally it's like straight or curled with curling iron and stuff. But I take a shower, shave, wash, whatever. And to me, that's like fresh start. Like, I don't know why, like, it sounds really dumb to say, but on the days where I'm really not feeling my best, I just kind of, it's like the eraser. Like, I just take it all off and start over.
I actually really like that. That is too funny. And the reason I say it is because I've never been aware of it, but that's what I did this morning. I was feeling not so great. I was like, man, I feel like I haven't gotten anything accomplished. And I was just kind of beating myself up about it. I was like, I like cold showers because they're hard. Works on me, spirit, mind, body. Meditation is easy compared to that. It'll force you to grow, but it reset me. So I love that you say that, because it just kind of validated, and I feel like that's a tool anybody could use to erase and start over.
It's so simple, right?
Exactly. Also, the other thing that comes to mind, and this is way off topic, is our art teacher.
Wait, hold on. Let's pause. I want to tell everybody how I met you and Megan. So I think I was a sophomore and you guys were junior and senior. Probably. I don't know.
Junior, I think, and we were seniors.
Okay, yeah.
We graduated in 2018.
Okay, I graduated. Okay, yeah. So I graduated 2019, so I would have been a junior. Okay. So I walked into art class and I didn't have any friends in this class, okay? So I walk into class. It's the last period of the day. And I saw this girl that I kind of knew from middle school. I had danced with her a little bit. And I was like, cool, like someone I kind of know. She kind of knows me. We're like acquaintances, not really good buddies. But I was like, I'll go sit by her. So I went and I sat down and I sat by her. And she looked at me in like a way that I'll never forget. She goes, my boyfriend was going to sit there. And I was like, oh no. And then all of a sudden I heard this voice from behind me, and it was Megan. And she was like, hey, come sit by us. And it was the two of you at a table. It was like all the tables had 3 chairs. And she was like, come sit by us. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. And we became friends. But I have never forgotten that. I was like, Megan saved me in that moment from this very awkward situation. Anyway, super random.
That is too funny. I didn't ever recognize that. Yeah. Well, I'm grateful for that moment because I'm here today.
It was Megan. She knew.
Exactly. But it's, it's crazy how one small snippet of our story has led up to this moment. And kind of as we were talking earlier is, I look back and I'm like, oh, like it all makes sense. We're here today. You've accomplished all these things. And now we get to collaborate and hopefully make an impact on somebody's life. But in that moment, it's not like we were able to project, 5-6 years out and be like, we're gonna be a podcast.
Crazy, huh?
Podcast.
You never know.
So, with that in mind, when was the moment that you started to want to speak out about your story?
That's kind of a hard question. I've always been a really open person as far as like my life. Like if you want to know what I'm up to or what I'm doing, like I'll tell you. It probably wasn't until my mission. So for anyone who doesn't know, because I don't think we've talked about this, I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And on my mission, I was teaching people, and you can teach people facts and you can teach people from scripture and stuff, but nothing, I kind of realized that nothing really hits the same as sharing personal experience. And so I think that was kind of when it first sparked for me of like realizing in every different situation, like I have things in my story or in my, testimony, if you're religious, that can help somebody. And so I think that was the first time that I ever realized like, oh, the things I have to say are important because they can help other people.
Yeah. And it's that because my story will help people because I've gone through X, Y, and Z, which will allow them to do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love that you talk openly about religion and God. So I was sharing with you earlier, Megan's LDS and I'm not. But our common ground is Jesus and God, foundationally. Like our beliefs really aren't that different. Just the title of it, right? But it's actually proven scientifically that somebody that believes in God will actually live a more of a prosperous life than somebody that doesn't. And the way I look at it is it's like a mountain. You know that when you go on a hike, you want to start from the bottom and you want to get to the top. And you want to enjoy the journey to the process. To me, that's life. I see that the top of the mountain is heaven, we'll just call it. And when I reach heaven, I want to be the best version of myself. And I want to accomplish everything that I'm capable of accomplishing in life. But while making the biggest impact I can, not just on myself, but my community. To me, not believing in God, and I could be completely wrong here, this is an opinion and I want everybody to understand that, is that when I envision not believing in God, it's like taking an eraser. We'll just keep that in this theme. And I erase the entire top of the mountain. And now it's like, where do you go? You're just climbing up the mountain, not towards anything. I love that. You could be going up, down. There's not a direction. Sure, I'm not saying you can't have a direction, but it seems less purposeful. You get at the top of the mountain, you die, and then what? Like, why should I go work so hard to make an impact? If I'm just going to die and then I'm done. I totally agree. What's the purpose? Absolutely. Why not just go sit down, play some video games, and do what I enjoy? Because nobody's going to remember me anyways. I think you're so right. And I love that analogy of the mountain too, because I think that you want to get to the mountain, but you don't want to get to the mountain and have hated climbing up the mountain because you want the top of the mountain to be this beautiful experience, right? You want to have enjoyed your time going up the mountain so that you can look over and be like, yeah, that was hard. Like I climbed that whole mountain, but look where I am now. I wouldn't have changed a thing. Exactly. And to me, so I personally believe that there's 7 things to master in order to accomplish destiny. Everybody's definition of destiny is different. Mine is that I've essentially checked all the boxes in my life. God said, hey, go accomplish these things. And I checked all the boxes. To me, you need awareness. Similar to you, you become aware of your eating disorder, which allowed you to be like, well, I think I need to have help with this. I need to transform this so I can live a better life.
Yeah.
You need to be able to master your identity of who you want to be in this world, not what other people want you to be. You need to be you. You need to have a vision. So I don't know, you might be able to actually do this, but to speak to God, there's a Bible verse that says the people that have a vision will not perish.
Okay.
Something of that nature.
Okay.
So to me, if you can always see at least the next step, not the next 10, just the next step, you'll never get lost. Then you need to master your mindset, emotions, and your spirit. You need to be able to have a purpose. You need to be able to take action, and you need to be able to make an impact. Because if you make it to the top of the mountain and you didn't help anybody else.
You're by yourself up there.
Yeah. Did you really accomplish? Did you really check the boxes? If you accomplished the top of the mountain and you saw 10 people struggling to get to the top, if you didn't lend a hand, did you really accomplish your destiny?
I love that. I think that's awesome. Yeah.
So you're taking your platform. You're clearly making a big impact. How does it feel knowing that you're changing people's lives? And what are some of the people that have said to you that let me rephrase this question. I don't think there's a right way there's probably a million ways to ask this question, but I feel like you've probably had so many people come up to you and say, you've changed my life, Lily. What are some of those experiences? How does it feel? And does that inspire you to go want to do more of it?
There was one time, so I miss Riverton, right? And there's been a lot of Miss Rivertons in the past. But something that was really, really important to me was I wanted to be Miss Riverton because I wanted to serve the community, not because I wanted to wear a crown and a sash or, go compete in Miss Utah, which are all great things and things that I love. But to me, that wasn't the point, right? The point to me was the service. Why am I Miss Riverton? And I've grown up in Riverton. I've lived in the same house since I was 5. And so I feel like I've been really involved in the community, and it's really shaped me to who I am, and I feel like I owe it back to the community to serve in return, because I would not be who I am without these cool experiences and people and unique opportunities that I've had. So that being said, this summer, Riverton has their town days. We have the big carnival. We have a big concert in the park on the 4th of July, and I've always helped with it, and so it was super cool for me to then be able to help as Miss Riverton. So I was going around to all the booths. I had my own booth as well. And I was able to talk to pretty much every single person, it felt like, that came to town days. And there was one, I was kind of up by the entertainment stage talking to some friends, and a little girl came up to me, which is not uncommon, right? I'm wearing a crown and stuff. And so she started talking to me, and we were having a conversation. I got down on her level and stuff. And she, after a couple minutes, told me that she really liked my crown. And I was like, thank you so much. I really like it too. And then I said, do you want to wear it? And so she was excited and stuff. So I, she put her head down and I pinned the crown on her head, let her wear it for a minute. And she was ecstatic, just over the moon. And then, I took it off. They walked away. The moment was over. And a few minutes later, a man came up to me who was just like one of the sound technicians helping out. And he said, did you know that little girl who just came up and talked to you? And it took me a minute to realize who he was talking about. And I said, oh, no, they just came up and started talking to me. And so I talked back. I was talking to them. And he looked at me and he said, you're a good person. And that's all I said. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, you had no idea who that little girl was, but you knew that talking to you was important. And so you made it important to you too, if that makes sense. And he was like, just talking about how I had created this moment for this girl that I didn't know. And it was kind of the first time I realized that not only had I helped that little girl, but that other people noticed. And then there's been times, so recently, Riverton High School, where we went to high school, they do Silver Rush, which is their giant charity, through the month of December. And I was able to help a lot with that. And I got to know a lot of the class officers at the school. And there was this one girl who, she was at everything. She was class officer, very bubbly, happy girl. And we had kind of become friends and stuff. And then when the new year came, after December, I made a post about my eating disorder. Very vulnerable, just kind of told the whole entire story. And she reached out to me. And she didn't reach out to me as Miss Riverton or anything like that, but she just reached out to me and was like, thank you so much. You know, I'm kind of going through the same things. And it was almost to me like she is where I was in high school. And so it was just cool that I had been given the opportunity as Miss Riverton, right, to meet her. But then me as Lily, I was able to help her and like form this genuine connection and stuff. Last thing I'll say is yesterday I went to help at a daddy-daughter like Valentine's event that the city puts on. So they go and they take pictures and they have a dinner and stuff. And then after, while they're waiting for all the pictures to develop, we like dance. And so I taught the dads and daughters how to do a waltz, and then we did like fun line dances, just like have a good time, you know. And afterwards, I was kind of up on the stage because I was teaching and everyone else was down. And afterwards, a dad and a daughter came up to me and the dad was like, hey, my daughter really wants to dance on the stage. Can you just dance on the stage? I was like, of course. So that girl got up and then like a bunch of other little girls in these big poofy dresses got up on the stage. And I have a video of us just having a dance party and we were having the time of our lives. And in the moment I was like, this is so fun. This is like, there is nowhere else I would rather be. And somebody sent me a video after, just like they had taken videos of the event, of me dancing with all these little girls. And at first I watched the video and I was like, that's so fun, like that this moment is captured. And then I noticed, because I was wearing like a jumpsuit, a one-piece jumpsuit, and I noticed I like didn't really like the way that it fit me. And so there was one time in the video where I stood at an angle and I was like, oh, that's a bad look. Like, I should not wear that jumpsuit again. And then I thought to myself, I was like, not one of those little girls thought about that. Not one of those little girls looked at me and thought, I don't like the way her jumpsuit fits her on her body. No, every single one of them was just having a good time, and I was able to kind of be the instigator of it. And so it was a good reminder for me to be like, I'm making a difference, and it doesn't matter what I look like, because that's me. That's in my head, which is like, I can work through that and come to acceptance. But as far as the moment itself, the moment was not ruined because I didn't like the way that my clothes were fitting. It was a good reminder to me.
I love that. I love that you state moments, because that's a moment that those girls could possibly always remember. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to that one girl that came up to you. It's like you recognize how important your influence is of those girls, and you take the time to make it a special moment. Mm-hmm. And I love that you recognize that even though if you don't feel 100% about yourself, mm-hmm. you know that it's making a bigger impact than you probably even imagined still. Right. Little girl, I mean, unfortunate story, and this is what came to mind, is unfortunately one of the kids that you've met and been able to influence someday might get sick. Mm-hmm. And they just might think, if I could have just went back to that moment and danced with Miss Riverton. Mm-hmm. And that just might put a smile on their face in years to come. Yeah. It's just a matter of time. You have a forever influence just from what you've done already in your life. And that's huge and something to be proud of.
I've talked to people a lot lately about, so as Miss Riverton, I have a platform, right? And I'm kind of in the process of changing, not what my platform is about, but the name. And a name I've really come to love is the domino effect. So a couple weeks ago, I went to an elementary school and I talked to these kids about the domino effect, just talking about how, you know, you have a big long line of dominoes. The first domino has no idea how many dominoes are in that line. If it's going to be a really cool, you know, you've seen like the videos of really cool dominoes, like all this first domino knows is that it's falling over and it's hitting the second domino, right? And so I talk to these kids about the domino effect that we have, right? The ripple effect, the good things that come in the world because of what you start.
Yeah.
And so I think that's so, just like you were saying, like there's no way to know the impact you have on people.
I love that. That's huge. So now you begin to write your story. You start to transform your eating disorder. You mentioned help.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you start with help? Because I feel like somebody that's watching this is at least one person, maybe even two, maybe even 10,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even more, are going through an eating disorder that haven't reached out for help, that are still struggling.
Right.
Where can they start?
Well, I mentioned that for me, things really started to spiral when I moved out of my parents' house. Because I was on my own and I could choose, the things I wanted to choose. And then all of a sudden, COVID happened. After I lived away from my parents for 9 months. COVID happened. I couldn't live at school anymore. I had no choice but to move home. And I was like in the deepest of these deep habits, where the longest I ever went without eating is 2 days. 2 whole days, 48 hours, which is crazy to think about now. But to me, it seemed so normal. But I moved home to my parents' house, not by choice, but because I had to. And it was the first time in a long time that if I kept up these habits, somebody was going to notice. Somebody was going to see, and not in a bad way that they were going to judge me, but somebody who loves me was going to see. And I didn't want somebody who loves me, because I knew they were going to try to help. I didn't want the help, I guess, at the time.
Yeah.
And so I had always kind of heard that, which is true, it's a fact, right? When you take care of your body and you give your body the nutrients it needs, it knows what to do with it. It's very smart. But the opposite's also true, where if you rob your body of nutrients and if you mistreat your body, then any kind of nutrients that your body receives, whether it's a Twinkie or a banana or an apple, like your body's going to hold on to that as tight as it can. Versus if you eat consistently, your body's going to know what to do with it, and it's going to go through you, or it's going to stay and give you the nourishment that you need. And so I had heard that for a long time, and I decided that it was COVID. I wasn't seeing anybody. So it was the first time that I was kind of okay with putting that to the test. And I don't know if this is really necessarily like an answer as to where you can go to for help. But for me, it was surrounding myself with people that I love, because even though they didn't know what I was going through, I wanted to be the best version of myself for them. I didn't want them to see that I was struggling, because I knew that would hurt them. I knew that would hurt my parents, and, So I started eating and regulating those things. And it took a long time for me to kind of normalize eating again. And so when you starve your body, right, your body sends you hunger signals, your stomach growls and things like that. But when you ignore signals that your body sends you, your body's it's not going to stop sending you signals, but it's going to try to find other ways to inform you, right? So if your stomach growls and you don't eat, and you keep ignoring that and keep ignoring that and keep ignoring that, your body's going to realize, okay, I'm not understanding that a growling stomach means I'm hungry. So your body's going to send you a headache, or your body's going to make you really, really tired, or really, really cranky. And that's other hunger signals, the same as your stomach growling, but it's your body trying to communicate with you in a different way. And so after I had kind of started regulating my eating, taking care of my body again for the first time, I will never, ever, ever forget the first time my stomach growled. I was on a run, so I live right by the Jordan River Trail. I was on either a run or a walk, I don't remember. Everyone was taking walks during COVID. So I was on the trail all by myself, and all of a sudden I remember the exact spot that I was in. I felt my stomach growl. And it was the first time in a long time that I realized that I hadn't felt my stomach growl in a long time. And it was a very, uplifting experience almost to be like, oh my gosh, my body is going back to normal. Like my body is figuring out that I'm learning how to take care of it again. And so I don't know if that necessarily, like, I've also seen therapists and stuff like that as far as eating disorders, but honest and truly, like, the most beneficial thing that I have done to even start that recovery process is just surrounding myself with people that I love.
So what I'm hearing is, one, you had to recognize that you had an opportunity for growth, we'll call it. Two, you got around people that not only love and care about you, but you also love and care about enough to be your best self for.
Yeah.
And then after you started to grow and change your diet a little bit here and there, then you started to go to therapists and whatever the case is. What I'm hearing is you took it one step at a time.
Exactly.
Kind of like that vision. As long as you can see your next step, then you'll be going in the right direction.
Yeah. And it's not like I realized, like, oh, I'm starting my eating disorder recovery today. Yeah. It was just like, this is where I'm at and this is what I feel like I need to do right now.
And that was an unconscious thing, but those steps are a blueprint for somebody else that's struggling.
Yeah,
because maybe they don't know where to start.
Yeah.
So I love that. That's huge. And it's just accepting yourself for where you were at and then taking action from there. Not holding judgment over yourself. You're you, me, even if it's not an eating disorder, just recognize where you're at. It's okay. We're human.
Yeah.
We all have struggles. From being Miss Riverton or being on a podcast or being Tony Robbins or the biggest people in the industry, they all have issues. You just don't see them. And it's okay to be human. It's who we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not having struggles means that you're not growing. And that's not a fun place to be in either.
No, not at all. Absolutely not.
So would you say that this is one of the hardest things you've gone through, or have you gone through other adversity in your life?
I've gone through adversity, but I would definitely say this is the hardest. And I say that because I didn't realize how bad it was at the time. And I probably wouldn't have said at the time, this is the hardest thing I've ever been through. But looking back, I can see that in those moments when I was in my apartment by myself, absolutely starving, crying over a roll that I was holding in my hands, like, I can look back and see that that was probably the darkest moment that I've ever felt in my whole life. But in the moment, I had no idea.
To speak to that, how much did God play a part in you going along the journey of your transformation?
All of it. The whole thing. So like I said, I'll backtrack a little bit. I was at work one day. I just moved to a new apartment building. I only lived there coincidentally for like a month before COVID started, but I just moved to a new apartment and I was at work, and I had this coworker who I would just bring like a protein shake or something that I would take, and it would be like what I'd eat all day long was just this one protein shake. And I had this coworker who, she would have lunch and stuff, and she kind of slowly started offering me things. Normally it was like raisins or something small that she wasn't going to eat. And to this day, I still have absolutely no idea if she was like just genuinely not going to eat them or if she saw and recognized. But that was when I was in the very deepest of everything that I was going through. And one day, another coworker of mine went and bought these like cheese rolls thingies. They had like ham and cheese inside of them. She bought one for everybody. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take mine home. I'll eat it at home. And I remember driving home with this roll in my lap. And I got home to my apartment building and I just like started to cry. Because I had never been so scared of something that was so tiny and seemingly just meaningless. So I was holding this roll in my hands, and the first kind of logical thought that came to my head was, literally a prisoner gets more food than this. a prisoner who's committed the worst thing you can possibly think of, people take better care of them than I am taking care of myself right now. So I went inside my apartment, I heated up the roll and I ate it. And it wasn't great. I wasn't happy about it, but I did it. And that night, it was the first time I probably kind of really recognized that I was in a dark spot. And I knelt down next to my bed in my dorm apartment, and I just started to cry to God, telling him that I didn't really know why I felt so much darkness. I didn't know why I felt like I was going through what I was going through, and I didn't even know what I needed from him. But I remember telling God that I needed something. And I was like, you are God, you know what I need, but I have no idea. And I had this thought because growing up as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we read the Book of Mormon. And I had always grown up with people telling me about the blessings that come from reading the scriptures, whether it's the Bible or the Book of Mormon. And it was the first time that I had ever thought, okay, God, I'm asking you for these things, so I'm going to do what you've asked me my whole life. I'm going to genuinely read the scriptures. And for me, reading, I can read. I don't have like dyslexia or anything like that, but just the comprehension, my brain moves so fast and I would rather be doing things. And so for me to sit down and read is so hard. And so I was sitting there in my prayer telling God that I needed something. I needed him to change something in my life, to give me something. And I had this thought and I decided, and I was like, okay, God, I'm going to read the scriptures every single day. Sometimes it might be one verse, a couple little lines, but I'm going to read until I can't understand what I'm reading anymore. But in return, you have to do something because I cannot keep living like this. And so I started to do that. And some days I could read a page or two, and some days I could literally only read a couple of words before I was like, I can't do this anymore. But I saw, in the moment, I saw that on the days that I was really good about reading consistently and giving, kind of fulfilling my half of the promise to God, as I did those things, I felt things get lighter and things get easier. And then I would have, a couple of really, really bad days, and it would take me a minute to realize I have not been holding up my end of the bargain, so why should I expect God to hold up his, right? And so it would kind of kick me back into gear. I would start reading, giving that attention to the Lord, and things would improve. And then probably 3 months later, it was when I decided to serve a mission, and I had kind of started to go through my recovery process, and then I started my mission in September. And as soon as I started my mission, I felt like everything had gone out the window, like all of my recovery, everything, because your environment changes so rapidly on your mission. So it was the first time in my life, right, that somebody else was controlling what was going into my body, what I was eating, when I was eating it. And it was really hard because I felt like I had worked so hard for like 6 months to get to a good place. And so there was one day after I'd been on my mission a mission goes through transfers. So one transfer is like a 6-week period. I had been on my mission for 2 transfers. So 12 weeks, which is kind of a long time. And I think it was almost 3 transfers. And I had realized that I was like at my breaking point. There was so much negative self-talk in my head that it felt like I was exhausted every single day because I was trying so hard to dedicate my life to helping other people while also fighting my own demons as well. And I remember the beginning part of my mission just felt like this endless cycle. Like every single day would end with me just being absolutely exhausted because I felt like I was in a war all day long. So I emailed my mission president, who is he's like the priesthood authority called to serve over an area of missionaries. And I email my mission president. I didn't really tell him what I was going through, but I just sent him an email that was like, hey, I'm not doing good. Can I meet with you? And so he called me as soon as he read the email and told me to come in. So I went into his office, and my mission president's name is Chase Andrews. Chase and Kelly Andrews are the best human beings I've ever met in my whole life. And
husband, wife, I assume.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So mission president and his wife, and I went into his office, and it was just me and him, and I just kind of started to open up. I started from, I have this thing, it's called body dysmorphia. I was really doing good before the mission. Now I feel like I'm not doing good. And then I just kind of started telling him about the mental battle that I felt like I was going through. And I was bawling, just crying, because I felt like it was this thing that I had been carrying on me for 18 weeks that I was finally able to kind of let go of. And I'll never forget, he looked at me and very, very understandingly just said, I will never be able to genuinely know what you're going through, but I'm going to do everything I can to help you. And I thought that was very big of him, just to first of all recognize like his humanity, like that he's not this great superior being, but he is in a position where he can help me. So in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we have this thing called the priesthood, that we believe that Jesus Christ had this power given. It's the power to act for God, right? So we believe that Jesus Christ had this power, and through the laying on of hands, he passed it to his prophets, who then, passed it through generations. And now we have people now who hold different capacities of the priesthood. And so my mission president gave me a priesthood blessing. And in a priesthood blessing, the man speaks what they feel through the Holy Ghost that God is speaking to you. And I really, really wish that I remembered what had been said during that priesthood blessing, but I remember feeling very hopeful and feeling like, okay, this is a very good start, because now the people, when I was at home, right, it was my parents that I didn't want to disappoint and stuff. Now on my mission, it's my mission president. He's here to help me. Like, I have the support system again that I need. And I started seeing a therapist, which...
While you were on your mission?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, while I was on my mission, and it wasn't an eating disorder therapist. It was just a general therapist. And so I saw a therapist for a couple of weeks, and it got to the point where she was like, I don't think we need to meet as often, because I think you're doing really well. And when we talk, it seems like you understand the negative things you're going through, but then you're also able to verbalize what you think is the logical solution to get through it. And so it helped me a lot. But I think, coming back to your question as to how has God played a role, it's everything. Because as I kind of re-began that healing process and re-sought all of that help, I was able to, we have this phrase when you serve a mission, it's forget yourself and go to work. And so I was genuinely able to understand that I am here for a reason. I'm here to serve the Lord and to help other people come to know God and Jesus Christ. And if I am able to not like suppress, but make other people's needs more important than my own, if I am able to do that on my mission, I can say with confidence that God will take care of me. My mission president's wife, Sister Andrews, she had this saying, because when you're on a mission, you go by elder or sister, but then you keep your last name. So I was Sister Snow, and she would say, give the Lord your first name, right? So I gave Lily to the Lord. She would say, give the Lord your first name, and by the end of your mission, when you have your first name back, so who the world sees you as, right? When you get that back, it will be unrecognizable, because God will have taken the utmost care of your first name. And so I kind of started that journey of really genuinely trying to forget myself and just serve others as the Savior would. And it helped me to see on my mission, as I was able to help people discover Jesus Christ for the first time, or help people have these spiritual experiences, that God blessed me to be able to see and feel even just a sliver of the love that he has for that person, right? And I was able to help carry that into that person's life. And it took me probably until the end of my mission, but at the end of my mission, I had kind of finally started to realize that this incredible, uncomparable love that I felt for these people that I was teaching, why should that not also apply to me? Why should God love me any less than he has helped me to feel his love for these people? And so while I would love to say that I did this and I did that, right, to like help myself overcome all of these things, it genuinely is because God put me in a position where I was able to learn the things that I learned and do the things that I did.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Serving is so powerful.
In any capacity, absolutely.
Do you feel like the lessons you've learned on your mission have allowed you to take those, implement them into Miss Riverton to make a bigger influence?
Absolutely. My least favorite phrase on the mission, because if anybody is familiar with missionaries, right, you probably think of two men in suits walking down the street, knocking on your door. And I absolutely hated like talking to strangers and like just talking to people on the street. They always say, talk to everybody. And I hated it because I love talking to people, but it feels so weird to sway your conversation into a conversation about the gospel or about God when you just met this person on the street. And I absolutely hated it. But now I feel like it's put me in a position where now that I'm not a missionary and I'm not like in that like, okay, you see me walking towards you, you obviously know what I'm coming to talk to you about if I'm a missionary, right? I can just talk to everybody openly and be who I am, but through being who I am, right, as Miss Riverton or whatever, my light can still shine through. So like, I feel like serving a mission helped me to be okay approaching people. And as Miss Riverton, I can approach people and then help them have positive experiences and positive interactions like we talked about earlier.
So do you, and this is purely out of curiosity, would you say Miss Riverton is a part of your identity or is it separate? Is there Miss Riverton and Lily Snow? Or how is that for you?
I genuinely like to think like sometimes when I put on my makeup and do my hair and put on, cute outfits, I think like, oh, I kind of feel like an imposter. But then I like am in the moment and I'm able to still be myself. It just is like this podcast has given you a voice, right? To be able to share who you are and the things that you believe in and all of that. I just feel like the crown that I wear on my head is kind of like a little like boost that helps me to share what I would want to share either way, but it helps to kind of amplify the audience that sees it.
It's an amplifier.
Yeah.
I love that. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's amplifying all the goodness that you bring to the world.
Thank you.
Of course. I could go on for hours. You've been amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And not only have you, again, it's the domino effect. You've already made such a big impact at 22.
I'm almost 22. I'm 21.
Okay. I wasn't too confident there.
That's okay. I feel like I'm
missed
25, so.
Well, you're wise, right?
Thank you.
You've made a big impact, and it's the domino effect. You're 21. I mean, I'm saying you should be so proud of yourself. I know that you are. And the vulnerability it takes to say, you know what, this is my story. This is what I've gone through. Now I'm going to share it with the world. Mm-hmm. And encouraging other people to start to write their own story and who they want to be and what they want to do. And your vulnerability has allowed other people to start to share their story, which is making this huge, amazing impact, and you're just 21. Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see where you end up years down the road.
Who knows?
And who knows? I'm sure we'll be on another podcast at some point together, or hopefully on a stage. But you're going to go far. You're going to make a huge impact in this world.
I appreciate that.
Now, how can the audience, support you?
I think for me, you can always, follow my social medias and keep up with the things that I'm doing. I have a social media as Miss Riverton. I'm definitely a lot better at keeping up my personal social media.
What is that? What is the...
So it's at Lily May Snow, but there's an underscore at the beginning, middle, and end. So _Lily_May_Snow_. It's the only thing I could find that wasn't taken that I wanted to use my name so that it's easier to find, But I think genuinely, to me, the biggest thing that people can do to support me is just to help, I guess, promote my platform in a way, right? Like, help other people understand the domino effect in your own life. Be that first domino that has no idea the effect that it can have, but it just does. Like, it just does what it's supposed to do without knowing what the outcome's going to be. And I think that if everybody... And again, there's no way for me to ever see the effects of that until, maybe after this life when we're standing on the top of the mountain. But to me, that will have been the biggest reward and the biggest kind of support that I could receive is just knowing that people take what I have to offer and understand that that applies to them as well and that they can do big things too. And just kind of, it just amplifies the domino effect in so many different directions.
Yeah, so just share your story and be a domino.
Absolutely.
Is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Be willing to be vulnerable, share your story, and go make your own impact, even if it starts small.
Absolutely.
Even if it's just sharing your story with one person. Wow, we've gone through so many things today. Eating disorders, God, hardships, writing your own story. And I think to really just summarize it is that if you can become aware of where you're at now, you can see where you're wanting to go and believe in something higher than yourself. Even if it's not Jesus, just believe in something.
Something that brings you hope, right? Yeah. Instead of just,
Start to walk. Take the next step. You don't need to know the next 10. Just take the next step and you'll see your life change. And someday, even if you start sharing your story with one person now, you, maybe us, will have a bigger platform and you can share it with bigger audiences and you'll make a bigger impact. And it goes back to the domino effect. You just have to start with one person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. With that in mind, is there any last words that you'd like to share with the audience?
I think, going back, so you sent me a question I think it was yesterday, about kind of what does it mean to me to live a prosperous life. We've touched on this a little bit, but to me, a prosperous life is one where, you have goals and you know where you want to be, but you're also capable of recognizing the small things that get you to that goal, right? So I'll touch on this briefly. I competed for Miss Riverton 3 times before I won. My first pageant, I didn't win at all. My second pageant, I won first runner-up, which is like second place. And then my third one, 5 years later after my first, I finally won. And it took me, quote unquote, losing a pageant, right? Getting first runner-up to realize, like, no, I went from nothing to this. And then, as first attendant, I was able to have like those small opportunities and those small things that helped me grow to then go on a mission and then come home and become Miss Riverton. And I would not be the Miss Riverton that I am today had I won the first time. Had I won immediately, I would have achieved the same goal that I have now achieved. But without all of those teeny tiny little steps and small goals in between, this thing that's so precious to me now would be seemingly meaningless. So that to me is a prosperous life, is one where I can appreciate the small steps while also having kind of the bigger picture in mind.
Love that. Seeing the small, seeing the now, and seeing where you're going for the future. It's huge. And sometimes you got to fail, get back up, and keep going. It's always a choice to get back up, but it's also a choice to stay down.
Absolutely.
Love that. Anything else you'd like to share?
I think that's it.
Amazing. You beat me to that question. I love that. That was top of mind. I love that definition, though, because it comes back to accepting where you're at now, too.
Yeah.
It's okay with what you're going through. We're all human, but just see where you want to go in the future.
Absolutely.
Start today. Thank you so much again.
Yeah,
and thank you, everybody, for showing up today, because as we've gone through, is if you become the domino, the small domino, you might become the big domino in the future, making a bigger impact in this world. So go out, do your thing, be you, become your authentic selves, and you'll see you're transforming. And if you ever want support, truly go to my website, braidenbelnap.com. And if you need support in creating a vision, go to the Vision Board Workbook. It's a free tool to you. That way you can start to see what you want to create for your future. That in mind, you all have a wonderful rest of your day.